Anime. Anime never changes. And this isn't too much of an exception, though I like this show a decent amount despite its flawed nature. Underneath the plain animation and short-lived run, this series has a plot worth investigating, some complex themes, and can pull off a twist well. But that doesn't mean there's no chinks in the armor. And I wanted to talk about this show more in depth because it was one of my favorites from winter 2019. And why is that, I wonder? I guess I'll be answering by digging right in. Egao no Daika. Or The Price of Smiles if you're more comfortable with that one. Spoilers ahead. Birthed by the sheer power of corporate money boners, Egao no Daika is an original property, robbed from its cradle and thrown right to the production wolves for a winter 2019 release. Conceived by Tatsunoko Productions as part of their 55th year anniversary, a company dating back to the 60s with a long and uninteresting history to the casual viewer. Making shows like Space Ace, The Legend of Snow White, and Japan's short-lived Magic School Bus dub, localized to Time Classroom, The Adventures of the Flying House, or for some things you may have actually heard of, Ping Pong the Animation, See the Money of Soul and Possibility Control, and the second season of Psycho-Pass. Sitting in the director's seat, Toshimasa Suzuki is a man with not too much experience. His only credit that jumped out to me was Heroic Age, a series I remember fondly, though it certainly suffers from some issues I find eerily similar to this production. I'm noticing a theme with his work. It's mostly sci-fi focused, and I will admit he at least has a way of bringing that setting to life. But as I mentioned in my Zombieland Saga review, I generally place a higher value on a series composer when it comes to original properties, since they're the ones crafting the narrative itself. Inotsume Shinichi brought this to life with some interesting core concepts. A writer who wrote quite a number of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure episodes throughout the years, crafting the anime adaptation of Hayate the Combat Butler, and Toaru Hikushie no Koyuta. The reason I bring up that last one is it had the same director as this one. So while I'm not doing it here, it might be interesting to do a comparison between the two series since both have the same head writer and director. Hayami Saori and Hanamori Yumiri fill out the two lead roles of Stella and Yuki respectively. Saori brings a ton of voice acting experience from Tsuki Monogatari, Kakegurui, and many more. Yumiri doesn't have as much under her belt, but still a number of roles like Rolling Girls, Happy Sugar Life, and Radiant. So we've got some experienced actors, an okay writer, and a director with a less than stellar track record. How do things pan out? Well, let's take a look at the story itself to judge that. But first, let's talk opening. The music is kind of a generic building orchestral pop affair. I do really like the violins, I can't really pin down why though. I just think it's a nice aesthetic choice. The animation itself feels more like a visual novel opening, giving character introductions reminiscent of that style. And despite Yuki and Stella not meeting face to face until the end of the series, the two are given quite a bit of implied relationship meaning. It's stressed more than the series delivers, which feels odd. Overall, I think it's just okay. It doesn't really strike me as memorable. The series begins with Yuki on her 12th birthday. In her country, a girl reaches maturity and can rule without the need of a regent at that age. Convenient, I know. Anyway, since she's in charge of her country now, her subjects come to pay respect to her, giving her gifts for her birthday and coronation. Next to her is her trusted advisor and guardian, Layla, and her knight Joshua. After the tiring day on the throne, she skips out for some fun with Joshua. He's a bit older than she is, but is her closest friend since they grew up together as brother and sister, due to both being orphaned at a young age. Joshua goes to win Yuki a toy in a mech video game, only to be bested by someone else. They look and find two other knights as their opponents. This forms a bit of a rivalry between Joshua and the girl knight. She refuses to bow to Yuki when giving her report on the northern, much larger empire, because many view the royal family as a relic of the past. Or so she says. In truth, she did so to see how Yuki reacted, which the young princess jumps up to befriend the knight. Satisfied with Yuki's resolve to face challenges and kill her enemies with kindness, she apologizes and asks for the princess's forgiveness. Joshua ain't taking any of that and wants to duel her one-on-one. During their sparring match in the same video game, Joshua edges out a victory with Yuki's help. earning him the respect of the upper echelon of knights. And with that, they take him out on a diplomatic mission to greet the Empire. We quickly find out that the diplomatic mission is actually a battle, since the relationship between the Empire and Yuki's kingdom has not been as peaceful as her knights made it sound. In order to keep their princess happy and land prosperous, they're fighting the war in secret. As the battle heats up, the fight seems pretty split between the two factions. Soleil, Yuki's country, and Grandesia, the Empire, have distinct strengths. The kingdom is more advanced, using magic space rocks to power their mechs better than their enemies, but the enemy has a numbers advantage. In the last struggle before losing the territory they're fighting over, Joshua gets hurt and eventually succumbs to his injuries. He's taken back to the capital for a burial, and it's there that Yuki learns about the war and everything else going on. Well, she learns by her trusted advisors taking her to Joshua's side right as he dies, but just missing him passing. This was the first big plot twist that knees you right in the gut. With the prominence of Joshua in the promo material, opening, and the first 2 episodes, you just kind of assume he's a main character. But his death tells you that this series isn't there to play nice. It has a story it wants to tell, characters be damned. And this is when the series introduces us to the second main character, Stella, a girl who fights for the Empire. She's a pretty emotionless girl, always wearing a smile as that's made her life easier until that point. Raised by foster parents turned abusers when they had their own child, since her mother and father died in a terrorist attack that also killed Yuki's parents. Told always to smile since that'll make it so that she could get through anything. She took that to heart and ran away from home, eventually joining the army to get by. They have orders to investigate and steal the magic space rock technology that makes mech better. You know. It also has this neat side effect of making crops grow better and being the foundation of their entire society with unlimited clean energy. Granted, that's kind of why they developed it in the first place, and the mechs seem to be the afterthought, but they only ever really use it for war in the series, so fuck it. Anyway, it's important because food's in short supply in this world, so they infiltrate the town, meet some war orphans, and take a liking to them. They save the kids before blowing up the facility they're robbing because they're really not such bad people, trying to end the war as quickly as possible to put an end to all the death and destruction. Unfortunately, it was Stella's side of the war that orphaned those kids, and they hate them for it. So even if they save them, they're not grateful and curse them as they leave. This leaves an impact on Stella, since she's seeing the consequences of this war up close from the other side. This would usually lead you into thinking that her unit will defect to the good guys and put an end to the evil empire. At least it would in most other stories you see, but here you'd be wrong. Back to Yuki, she's distraught that everyone around her lied to her about the war, since they told her relations were going well while keeping the conflict a secret. Also, her best friend / brother / love interest is dead. Eventually, she gets back into the saddle and oversees the battle taking place, just to find out they're losing another town. But when some civilians refuse to evacuate, Yuki orders some troops to swoop back in and protect those people. This leads to those troops and civilians getting killed and Yuki learning a hard lesson. As much as she wants to protect life, she's faced with hard choices. Eventually, the war ends up on their doorstep and the capital city is about to be overtaken. Yuki offers to give herself up to save her citizens, but her entire cabinet lies to her once more. They say they're going to take her to the Empire, only to evacuate the capital against her wishes, because they feel they can still win this war. During the battle for the capital, one of Stella's squad members gets injured and is about to be shipped back home. He's given a send-off and shown around the palace since he's a country bumpkin. In a private moment, their sergeant tells Stella that he's seen a ton of people like her. Broken individuals who hide behind those emotionless smiles just to keep themselves sane. But all she's really doing is keeping everyone at a distance, and that's really no way to live. This actually gets through to Stella a bit, as when they find out their injured friend's transport was destroyed on its way back home, she shows actual emotion for the first time in this series. Back with Yuki, things aren't going too well on the war front, as they're trying to make better magic rocks, but something doesn't seem right. They get a message from another trusted advisor who stayed back at the capital, finding some research from another empire that was destroyed in a war that the magic rocks aren't so magic. He sends the info to Yuki, and we learn that the human colonists who arrived on that planet in the distant past dropped nanomachines to terraform it so it would be habitable. The magic rocks are actually drawing power from the nanomachines, which is what makes the soil farmable and the air breathable. This is the second big plot twist that's hinted at early on, with Yuki's sunflowers not growing and the shortage of food on the planet. The more they use the magic rocks, the more they're destroying the world. And it's the main cause of the war since it's all about resources. Yuki has Layla, who happened to be a magic rock researcher before her family died in the terrorist attack that killed Yuki's parents. And yeah, she's Stella's mom, who thinks her daughter's dead. Makes a magic rock deactivation thing that's going to win the war. Or not, since it's not a practical weapon. But Yuki has a plan. The next big conflict after the head knight and guy she was close with died, she unveils a massive artillery weapon that's mostly for show, so she can slip away into the older Empire's research facility. Stella's unit, having lost their commander to the night guy, is pretty tore up and wants to end the war as quickly as possible. They find Yuki and chase her to a tower that has the power to deactivate all the magic rocks in the entire world. As Stella goes to stop Yuki, Yuki tells her that she wants to end the bloodshed. With a heartfelt speech, she sways Stella to her side, and the two press the big go back to the Stone Age button. The series ends with everyone living a pretty happy life since farming is instantly better, and there's no more mechs to fight the war. Peace is quickly declared, and things end pretty nicely. So let's talk a bit about the things this series does well. I like the moral ambiguity this series plays with. A quick thing you'll notice is each side of this war has a reason to fight that isn't awful. Neither side is evil just for the sake of it. Yuki's kingdom is a typical monarchy fighting with a code of honor that's fending off a larger invader, but is also more technologically advanced and living in luxury due to their magic rock research. Even if crops are harder to grow, shown by Yuki trying to grow sunflowers but them not being able to thrive, their people are still getting by with their technology making up for the loss in productivity. The Empire has a larger population and more territory to feed. Their emperor came to power seemingly on his own without birthright or the like, so he uses the strong military to justify his position. But with his population starving and seeing Yuki's kingdom living in luxury with better technology for growing food, he sets out to take over their country. With their upper echelon knowing that the rock-based power source is actually hurting the environment, it makes you think that they're evil by hiding that information at a glance. But thinking about it realistically, which is explained to Yuki by Layla, that simply not using that technology isn't an option for them. Their entire civilization is founded upon it, from food production to transportation. Even if it's killing the planet, just immediately stopping isn't so easy. Quality of life would immediately drop. This echoes modern-day concerns with climate change, so it's got that thinly veiled environmental message behind it. But I feel the show's message is muddled a bit in its resolution. It proposes that yes, it's an issue, they're destroying their means of survival in the long term to thrive for a few hundred years. But simply taking out a foundational building block of their society isn't something they can just do. It's allowed them to build massive mechanized suits, huge transport vehicles, and a ton of other amazing technology that's made their world smaller. Even if Yuki's kingdom decided to stop, the larger empire won't agree to do so. So it offers quite a predicament that mirrors many of the political debates we struggle with today, with it even being dismissed as naive to think stopping use of that technology will fix their problems overnight, as war is inevitable. That's a little undercut when the series decides that it is naive but still wraps up everything in a neat little package at the end. Another big part of this series I like is the growth of characters. Yuki starts off as a wide-eyed princess who believes everything she's told. When Joshua dies, she's suddenly smacked with the realization that the world isn't so nice. But instead of making her jaded, it pushes her further into the mindset that life is important, even her enemies' lives. In many places, she uses her army to save as many people as she can, even if it means losing the battle. It shows her resolve growing, that even as those around her pass away from the conflict, she values life and putting an end to the war above her own feelings. Stella's growth is more personal than that of a royal. She goes from someone emotionally walled off to opening her heart to a stranger she never met, putting her life in Yuki's hands by believing in the princess's ideal, with a promise to end the fighting by stopping their modern technology, which has been used to cause mass destruction. Stella, having lost her comrade and commander to the fighting, two people she grew to respect, and the commander shaping her value on life, she comes a long way from an emotionlessly smiling girl at the start. So while there's a lot I do like in this series, I feel it mostly stops at interesting concepts rather than full-fledged ideas. The world building is great, and the primary conflict between nations has a ton of weight, but the resolution to the series feels rushed beyond belief. An already destroyed empire has a device that's basically operational, that just so happens to shut off all the magic rock powered technology in the entire world with the press of a button, and all they have to do is just go there and do that. That's basically a textbook definition of a Deus Ex Machina. The final battle between the two countries is staged to have a ton of significance, but ultimately goes nowhere, leaving the series lacking a satisfying climax. Even Stella coming face to face with Layla has so little weight, since Layla recognizes her daughter right before sacrificing herself to save her, and never getting a chance to really say anything about that besides, "Oh, you did survive." As I've already hinted at, this series falls a bit flat at the end with its moral follow-through. It treats its solution as not realistic, which by all rights it really isn't, and then undercuts that by showing how everything seemingly sorted itself out in mere months after they shut off the technology. Apparently the nanomachines rebounded quickly and fixed the soil right up. Ultimately, I'm left with mixed feelings about this series. The build-up is intense, the ending is satisfying, but the actual climax and later half feel weighed down and lackluster. I don't know if people will remember this series in a few years, but I think it's worth checking out for a quick binge if you're into sci-fi military shows. Though, hopefully you didn't just show up for the mecha, cause that's really not important to this one. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and do all the other YouTube stuff because that really helps me out. Thanks for watching.